I'd been running on fumes for weeks, grinding through late nights and early mornings at the office, all for this big project that had my boss breathing down my neck. My hands ached from typing. My eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets. But I kept going because I wanted to give Monica and me a good life. A comfortable life. The kind where we didn't have to worry about bills or scraping by. So when I pulled into the driveway that evening, all I could think about was kicking off my shoes, stepping into a hot shower, and maybe eating some of Monica's lasagna if she'd bothered to cook. I wasn't asking for much, just a little quiet after the chaos of work. But as my truck rolled to a stop, something caught my eye. A bright red, "Sold" sign stuck right in the middle of our front lawn, bold as you please, like it belonged there. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was so tired I was imagining things. Was this some kind of prank? Did the real estate people mess up and plan it at the wrong house? My stomach twisted a little, but I brushed it off and grabbed my bag, figuring I'd sort it out inside. The second I pushed the door open, though, everything flipped upside down. There was Monica, cool as a cucumber, standing in the living room with her fancy designer suitcases stacked around her. She was sipping a glass of red wine, her lips stained a little, acting like it was just another Tuesday night. She didn't even look up from zipping one of her bags when I walked in. "Oh, you're home early," she said, smirking like she'd just won some game I didn't even know we were playing. I stood there, my key still dangling in my hand, trying to make sense of it. "What the hell is this?" I asked, pointing out the window at that damn sign. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to, but I didn't care. She sighed, loud and dramatic, like I was some kid throwing a tantrum over nothing. "We sold the house, darling," she said, dragging out the word darling like it was a joke. "You don't need a luxury home at your age. It's time you start living realistically." My heart stopped dead in my chest. We? What was she talking about? This house wasn't just some random thing, it was ours. Mine. I'd poured every dime I had into it, every late night at work, every missed weekend. And now she was standing there, acting like it was her call to make. I couldn't even get a word out before she kept going, zipping up her last suitcase with a flick of her wrist. "I'm heading to Europe for a few weeks," she said, all casual, like she was popping out to the store. "First class, of course. 5-star hotels, private yachts, the works." She stepped closer, her perfume hitting me like a slap, and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. "You'll thank me later," she added, her voice dripping with that smug confidence she always had. Then she grabbed her bags and walked out the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood, not a single care in the world. I just stood there, frozen, watching her go. The house was quiet now, too quiet, and that red sign outside seemed to glow in the dusk. My mind was racing, trying to catch up. She'd sold our house, my house, without even a word to me. She was jetting off to Europe with the money, leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back and a truck full of work junk. But as the shock started to fade, something else kicked in. Anger. Hot, sharp, and alive. She thought she could just walk away, live her fancy life, and leave me in the dust. She thought I'd roll over and take it. But she didn't know me at all. When she came back from her little trip, she'd find out the hard way. She'd have nowhere to land. I wasn't going to let this go. Not now, not ever. This was my home, my life, and I'd be damned if I let her take it all without a fight. The next few minutes were a blur. I dropped my bag on the floor, ran a hand through my hair, and tried to breathe. The shower could wait. Dinner could wait. I needed to figure out what just happened, how she pulled this off, and what I was going to do about it. I looked around the living room, our living room, and saw her wine glass still sitting on the coffee table, half empty. It felt like a taunt. She'd been planning this, sipping her wine while I was out there busting my ass. My hands clenched into fists, and I had to stop myself from smashing something. Instead, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I didn't know who to call yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Monica thought she'd won, but this was just the beginning. She'd left me standing in an empty house, but I wasn't empty inside. I had fire, and I had a plan starting to form. She'd see soon enough, she'd messed with the wrong guy. I wasn't about to stand there like some fool, staring at the spot where Monica had walked out with her suitcases and her smug little smirk. My head was spinning, my chest tight with a mix of shock and fury, but I knew I had to move. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The house was too quiet now, the kind of quiet that presses in on you, makes you feel like you're drowning in it. That red, "Sold" sign outside was mocking me through the window, and I couldn't just sit there and let it win. So I grabbed my keys, locked the door behind me, funny how that felt pointless now, and headed to the garage. I kept all our important papers in a fireproof box out there, tucked behind some old camping gear we never used. If Monica had pulled this off, there had to be a trail, some kind of proof I could dig up to figure out how she'd screwed me over so bad. The garage smelled like oil and dust, and the fluorescent light flickered as I flipped it on. I shoved aside a couple of boxes, my hands shaking a little, until I found that metal box. It wasn't much, just a cheap thing I'd picked up years ago, but it had everything: mortgage papers, tax stuff, bills. I popped it open and started pulling out folders, my fingers fumbling as I spread them across the workbench. I bought this house 10 years ago, back when Monica and I were still happy, or at least pretending to be. It was my money, my savings, my dream to have something solid to call ours. But then I remembered something that hit me like a punch to the gut. A few years back, Monica had talked me into adding her name to the deed. "It's just paperwork," she'd said, all sweet and smiling, pouring me a beer while we sat at the kitchen table. "It'll make things easier down the road." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. So I signed where she told me to, not thinking twice about it. Now, looking at those papers, I felt sick. I found the deed first, the original one with both our names on it, and I stared at it for a long time, my eyes burning. But then I kept digging, flipping through statements and letters, and that's when I saw it, a refinancing document dated 6 months ago. My name wasn't on it, just hers. Monica's signature was there, neat and loopy, but mine? Nowhere. I grabbed another folder, my heart pounding now, and found more. Bank statements showing she'd been pulling money out of our joint account, little by little, and moving it somewhere else. Then the big one, a letter from the mortgage company confirming the refinance, addressed only to her. She'd taken me off the deed completely, months ago, while I was working late nights, busting my ass to keep us afloat. Legally, the house was hers now, and she'd sold it without me even knowing. My hands were trembling so bad I dropped the papers, watching them scatter across the concrete floor. I leaned against the workbench, gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white, trying to breathe. She'd played me. All those nights I'd come home exhausted, kissing her goodnight while she scrolled through her phone. She'd been plotting this. Refinancing behind my back, wiping me out of the picture, and then cashing in. I thought about her sipping that wine earlier, so calm, so sure of herself. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. She knew I couldn't stop her because she'd already covered her tracks. The house was gone, the money was hers, and she was halfway to Europe by now, probably laughing about how easy it was. I sank down onto an old stool, staring at the mess of papers around me. My whole life was in those pages, and she'd torn it apart like it was nothing. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but instead I just sat there, letting it sink in. This wasn't just about the house. It was about trust, about everything I'd built for us. I'd been blind, too busy working to see what she was doing right under my nose. But now I saw it all, every lie, every fake smile. My throat tightened, and I had to swallow hard to keep from losing it. I couldn't let her win, not like this. She thought she'd left me with nothing, but she was wrong. I still had my fight, my brain, and a stack of evidence right here in front of me. I scooped up the papers, shoving them back into the box, my mind already racing. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to find a way to hit back. She'd taken my home, my money, my peace, but she wasn't going to take my spine. This was just the start, and I'd make damn sure she regretted it. I couldn't sleep that night. The garage light buzzed overhead as I sat there with those papers spread out, staring at the proof of Monica's betrayal until my eyes ached. My whole world had flipped upside down in a matter of hours, and I kept replaying her voice in my head. "You'll thank me later," she'd said, like she'd done me some kind of favor. The anger was boiling now, hot and steady, and I knew I had to do something. Sitting still wasn't an option. I grabbed my phone off the workbench, my thumb hovering over her name and my contacts. I didn't even know what I'd say, but I needed to hear her try to explain this. I needed to know how she could look me in the eye and act like this was normal. So I hit call, pacing the cold concrete floor as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. Her chipper voice came through. "Hi, it's Monica. Leave a message." And I hung up, my jaw tight. I tried again. Same thing. She was ignoring me, probably already on her fancy flight to Europe, sipping champagne while I was stuck here with nothing. By the 4th try, I was ready to chuck the phone across the garage, but then she picked up. Her voice came through, sharp and annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. "Can't we do this later?" she said, not even a hello. "I have a spa appointment in the morning, and I really don't want to argue right now." I stopped pacing, gripping the phone so hard I thought it might crack. A spa appointment? She'd just ripped my life apart, and she was worried about a massage? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice low and steady, even though I wanted to yell. "You stole my house, Monica," I said, letting the words hang there. She scoffed, that little laugh she did when she thought I was being ridiculous. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said. "We made a strategic financial decision. The house was too big for you anyway. You'll be better off in a small apartment, less maintenance, less hassle." I stood there, stunned, the phone pressed to my ear. She wasn't even pretending to care. Too big for me? This wasn't about practicality, it was about her cashing out and leaving me in the dirt. I opened my mouth to fire back, but she kept going, her tone light and breezy like we were chatting about the weather. "A portion of the money will help you get a nice little condo," she said. "Richard will handle the details once we're back." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Richard? Her divorce lawyer? The name hit me like a brick. I'd met him once, a slick guy with a fake smile and a handshake that lasted too long. She'd been working with him on this? My hands curled into fists, the phone creaking in my grip. "Richard," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't even hesitate. "Yes, darling, he's been a huge help. Anyway, I've got to go. Enjoy your night." The line clicked dead before I could say another word. I stood there in the garage, the silence crashing back in, louder than ever. My mind was racing, piecing it together. This wasn't just about the house. She'd been planning this for months, refinancing, selling, teaming up with her lawyer to cut me out completely. And now she was talking about a condo like it was some consolation prize, like I'd just nod and say, "Thanks, honey, you're right." My chest tightened, and I had to lean against the workbench to steady myself. She wasn't just betraying me, she was trying to erase me. Divorce lawyer. That meant she wasn't just taking the house, she was taking everything, planning to walk away clean while I scrambled to pick up the pieces. The anger flared hotter now, burning through the shock. This wasn't a mistake or a spur-of-the-moment thing. This was war. I set the phone down, slow and deliberate, and ran a hand through my hair. My heart was pounding, but my head was clearing. She thought she had me beat, thought I'd just roll over and take it because I'd been too tired, too trusting, to see it coming. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. I'd spent years working my ass off, building something for us, and I wasn't going to let her waltz off with it. Not without a fight. I looked at the papers again, the ones with her signature all over them, and something clicked. This wasn't over, it was just starting. She'd planned her moves, but I could plan too. I didn't know how yet, but I'd find a way to turn this around. She was sipping wine in first class right now, thinking she'd won. Let her think that. Let her relax. Because when she came back, I'd be ready. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about justice, about making her pay for every lie she'd fed me. I straightened up, my hands steady now, and grabbed my keys. I needed to think, to figure out my next step. But one thing was clear, Monica had started this, and I was damn well going to finish it. I wasn't going to let Monica's little phone call be the end of it. Her voice still echoed in my head, all smug and careless, talking about spas and condos while I stood in a garage full of papers that proved she'd stabbed me in the back. My hands were still shaky from the anger, but I wasn't about to sit around feeling sorry for myself. She thought she'd won, thought she could just jet off to Europe and leave me with nothing. But I wasn't done, not even close. I needed a plan, and I couldn't do it alone. So I grabbed my phone again, this time with a purpose, and scrolled through my contacts until I found Jared. My lawyer. My buddy from college. The guy who'd always had my back, no questions asked. If anyone could help me dig out of this mess, it was him. I hit call, and he picked up on the second ring, his voice loud and cheerful like always. "Jace, my man. What's up? You finally taking me up on that fishing trip?" I almost smiled, but my throat was too tight. "Not exactly," I said, pacing the garage again. "I need your help, Jared." Monica sold the house out from under me. There was a pause, a long one, and I could almost hear him sit up straighter on the other end. "She what?" he said, his tone shifting from jokey to serious in a heartbeat. I spilled it all, the sold sign, her packing up, the refinancing papers I'd found, her casual little announcement about Europe and Richard the divorce lawyer. Jared didn't interrupt, just let me talk, and when I finished, he let out a low whistle. "She sold the house without your consent?" he asked. "She's bold, I'll give her that. But she might have made a mistake here, Jace. A big one." I stopped pacing, leaning against the workbench. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice rough. Jared chuckled, that dry laugh he did when he was about to get to work. If she refinanced behind your back and took your name off the deed without you knowing, that's shady as hell. Could be fraud, could be forgery. We'll need to see those papers, but if there's anything off, we've got her. My heart picked up, a little spark of hope cutting through the rage. You think we can fight this? I asked. Fight it? Jared said. We're not just fighting it. We're gonna bury her. Send me everything you've got, and I'll start digging tomorrow. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thanks, man, I said, and I meant it. Anytime, he replied. Oh, and Jace? Monica's always been a piece of work. I never liked her. I laughed for the first time all night. Yeah, you've mentioned that. Hanging up with Jared felt like a weight lifting, but I wasn't done yet. I needed more than just a lawyer. I needed someone who could sniff out every dirty trick Monica had pulled with the money. That's when I thought of Lucas, my older cousin. He was a forensic accountant, the kind of guy who could find a needle in a haystack of numbers and tell you exactly who hid it there. We'd always been close, more like brothers than cousins, and he'd never say no to me. I dialed him up, and he answered quick, his voice gruff but warm. Jace, you okay? It's late. I didn't waste time. Monica screwed me over. Lucas. Sold the house, took my name off the deed, and ran off with the cash. I need you to look at her money trail. There was a beat of silence, then a low growl. That little, all right, I'm in. Get me whatever you've got, bank stuff, anything. I'll find where she stashed it. I grinned, despite everything. You're the best, I said. Yeah, he grumbled. Just don't let her get away with this. With Jared and Lucas on board, I felt like I had a real shot. I started gathering up the papers again, stuffing them into a bag to send over. Monica thought she'd taken everything, my home, my money, my pride. She thought I'd just shrug and move into some cramped condo while she lived it up on yachts. But she didn't know the kind of team I was putting together. Jared hated people like her, entitled, sneaky, full of themselves, and he'd fight tooth and nail to make her pay. Lucas, well, he was a bloodhound with numbers. If she'd hidden a single dime, he'd track it down. I slung the bag over my shoulder and locked up the garage, the cold night air hitting my face as I headed to my truck. I didn't have a house anymore, not really, but I had something better now, a plan, and people who'd stick by me. Driving away from the house felt strange, that sold sign glaring at me in the rearview mirror. But I wasn't running. I was regrouping. Monica had no idea what was coming. She thought she'd left me broken, but I was already building something stronger. Jared and Lucas were my first moves, and they wouldn't be my last. I'd take back what was mine, piece by piece, and when I was done, she'd be the one with nothing. I turned up the radio, letting the noise fill the cab, and gripped the wheel tight. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. The next few days were a blur, but I wasn't sitting still anymore. After pulling Jared and Lucas into this mess, I felt like I had some control back, like I wasn't just a guy who'd been blindsided by his wife. I dropped off all the papers at Jared's office the morning after our call, handing over that bag of financial records like it was a ticking bomb. He clapped me on the shoulder, grinning like a kid on Christmas. This is gonna be fun, he'd said, and I believed him. Lucas got his copies too, and I could tell he was already itching to dive in, muttering about offshore accounts and tax loopholes as he flipped through the pages. Me, I was stuck waiting, crashing on an air mattress in my buddy Ryan's spare room while they did their thing. It wasn't much, just a lumpy mattress and a pile of my clothes in the corner, but it was better than staring at that sold sign every day. Ryan didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a beer and said, "Make yourself at home, man." I was. I spent my time pacing Ryan's apartment, trying to keep my mind busy. Work was a no-go. I'd called in sick, too wound up to sit at a desk pretending everything was fine. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Monica's friends, people I hadn't talked to in months, asking if I was okay, if the rumors were true. I ignored them all. I didn't need pity. I needed results. And then, about a week after she'd left, Jared called me. His voice was sharp, excited, like he'd just struck gold. "Get over here," he said. "We've got something." I didn't waste time. I grabbed my keys, told Ryan I'd be back, and drove to Jared's office, my heart pounding the whole way. Whatever he'd found, it had to be big. I could hear it in his tone. When I walked in, Jared was at his desk, papers spread out like a hurricane had hit. Lucas was there too, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, a smirk on his face. "You're gonna love this," Jared said, waving me over. I sat down, my leg bouncing under the table, and he slid a stack of documents my way. "Take a look at this," he said, pointing to a page with Monica's signature scrawled across it. It was one of the refinancing forms, the one that took my name off the deed. "See anything funny?" he asked. I squinted at it, my stomach twisting. It was my name, all right, signed right next to hers, but it didn't look right. The loops were off, the slant too perfect. "She forged it," I said, my voice low. Jared nodded, grinning wide. "Bingo. That's not your handwriting, Jace. We can prove it. She didn't just refinance behind your back. She faked your signature to do it." I leaned back in the chair, letting that sink in. Forgery. That wasn't just sneaky, it was illegal. My hands clenched into fists on the table, but I wasn't mad anymore. I was energized. "That's fraud, right?" I asked, looking between them. Lucas stepped forward, dropping a thick folder in front of me. "Oh, it gets better," he said. "I've been tracking her money. She's been siphoning cash out of your joint account for over a year, small amounts at first, then bigger ones. And guess where it's going?" I raised an eyebrow. "Europe." I guessed. He shook his head. "Some of it, sure. But most of it's sitting in an offshore account in the Caymans. Untaxed, unreported, and hidden. She's been building a nest egg, probably planning to ditch you for good." I stared at the folder, my mind racing. Offshore accounts? Forged signatures? This wasn't just betrayal, this was a damn crime spree. I flipped through the pages Lucas had marked up, bank transfers, wire receipts, dates that lined up with nights she'd told me she was out with friends. It was all there, laid out like a map of her lies. "This is fraud," Jared said, leaning forward. "And it's illegal as hell. We've got her on forgery, financial deception, maybe even tax evasion if Lucas's numbers hold up with the IRS. He tapped the desk, his eyes locked on mine. "She thought she could outsmart you, but she's sloppy. We can use this, Jace. We can take her down." I nodded, slow at first, then faster as it hit me. "Let's bury her," I said, my voice steady. Jared laughed, clapping his hands together. "That's my boy. I'll start drafting the lawsuit. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, the works. Lucas, you keep digging. If there's more, I want it." Lucas gave a mock salute. "Already on it." I sat there, watching them bounce ideas back and forth, and for the first time since Monica walked out, I felt like I was winning. She was out there, sipping champagne in Paris or wherever, thinking she'd pulled it off. But here I was, with two of the sharpest guys I knew, building a case that could ruin her. The house might be gone, but I had something better now, evidence. Hard, cold proof that she'd broken the law to screw me over. I left Jared's office with a copy of the key documents, my steps lighter than they'd been in days. The air outside was crisp, and I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs. Monica had no idea what was coming. She'd spent a year hiding assets, faking my name, thinking I'd never catch on. But I had Jared, who lived for this kind of fight, and Lucas, who could unravel her money maze like it was a kid's puzzle. I wasn't just some chump she could toss aside anymore. I was a guy with a team, with a plan, and with enough ammo to make her regret every move she'd made. I got in my truck, turned the key, and smiled to myself. She'd started this game, but I was about to change the rules. I couldn't sit around waiting for Jared and Lucas to do all the work. I had to move, had to keep the momentum going. Knowing Monica had forged my signature and stashed money overseas lit a fire under me, and I wasn't about to let it burn out. She was out there, sipping champagne in Paris, living her high life while I was crashing on Ryan's couch, but that was fine. Let her think she'd won. Let her relax. Because every minute she spent lounging on some yacht was a minute I spent setting up her downfall. I wasn't just mad anymore, I was focused. Sharp. Ready to turn her little game into a trap she couldn't wiggle out of. So while Jared worked on the legal stuff and Lucas tracked her money, I started putting my own pieces in place. This wasn't just about fighting back, it was about winning, clean and simple. First thing I did was call Jared again. He picked up quick, sounding like he was already deep in paperwork. "What's up, Jace?" he asked. "You got something else for me?" I leaned against Ryan's kitchen counter, staring at the chipped tile floor. "Yeah," I said. "I want to hit her hard. Freeze her accounts. Stop her in her tracks. Can we do that?" Jared didn't hesitate. "With what we've got? Hell yes. I'll file an emergency motion tomorrow. Fraud allegations, forged documents, hidden assets. The judge will see it and lock her funds down faster than you can blink. She won't know what hit her." I grinned, picturing Monica trying to pay for her fancy hotel and getting a big fat declined instead. "Do it," I said. "Make it quick." He laughed. "Consider it done." She's gonna regret this trip. Next, I got Lucas on the line. He was gruff as always, but I could hear the excitement in his voice. He loved catching people like Monica. You find anything new? I asked, pacing now. Oh yeah, he said. She's been sloppy. There's a trail of transfers to that Cayman account, and I found some receipts she didn't bother hiding: private jet rentals, hotel deposits. She's burning through the house money like it's pocket change. But here's the kicker. She hasn't filed taxes on any of it. I've got enough to tip off the IRS for an audit. They'll eat her alive. My heart jumped. An audit? That was perfect. Send it, I told him. Get them on her as soon as you can. He grunted. Already drafting the report. She's toast, Jace. With those 2 moves locked in, I felt like I was building something solid. Jared would freeze her accounts, Lucas would sick the IRS on her, and me? I'd stay quiet. That was the key. Monica thought I was sitting around, moping, too broken to fight back. I wasn't going to call her, wasn't going to text, wasn't going to give her a single hint that I was onto her. Let her sip her wine and soak in her spa, oblivious to the storm coming her way. I tossed my phone on Ryan's couch and sank down next to it, running a hand through my hair. Ryan walked in from the kitchen, a beer in each hand, and raised an eyebrow. You look like you're plotting a murder, he said, handing me one. I took it, popping the cap with a smirk. Not quite, I said. Just tearing Monica's life apart, piece by piece. He laughed, dropping into the armchair across from me. You're about to destroy her, man. Make it count. Oh, I plan to. I took a long swig of the beer, the cold biting my throat, and let my mind settle. Living with Ryan wasn't glamorous. His place was a mess of old furniture and takeout boxes, but it was a lifeline. I'd moved my clothes and a few things from the house before the new owner showed up, and Ryan didn't blink when I asked to crash. Stay as long as you need, he'd said, and I was grateful. It gave me a base, a place to think, to plan. I didn't need much, just a roof and a spot to regroup. The house was gone, sure, but I wasn't homeless. I had my truck, my friends, and a fight in me that Monica didn't see coming. She'd underestimated me, and that was her biggest mistake. I spent the next few days keeping busy, helping Ryan fix up his place a little, patching a hole in the drywall, tightening a leaky faucet. It wasn't much, but it kept my hands moving, kept my brain from spinning too fast. Every night, I'd check in with Jared or Lucas, getting updates. Jared filed the lawsuit, and the judge signed off on freezing Monica's accounts faster than we'd hoped. Lucas sent his report to the IRS, and they were already sniffing around her records. It was all falling into place, quiet and steady, like setting a trap. I pictured her over there, swiping her card for some overpriced dinner, only to see it bounce. The thought made me smile, but I didn't let myself gloat too much. This wasn't over yet. She'd be back soon, and I wanted everything ready when she landed. Lying on that air mattress at night, staring at Ryan's cracked ceiling, I felt a strange kind of calm. Monica had taken my house, my money, my trust, but she hadn't taken me. I was still here, still standing, and I had a team behind me. Jared, Lucas, Ryan, they were my backbone now, and together we were building something she couldn't dodge. She'd walked out that door thinking she'd left me with nothing, but she was wrong. I had everything I needed to bring her down. All I had to do was wait, stay silent, and let the plan unfold. When she stepped off that plane, she'd see. This wasn't her victory lap. It was mine. 2 weeks passed like a slow burn, every day ticking by while I waited for Monica to come back and face the mess I'd set up for her. I kept my head down, sticking to Ryan's place, working odd jobs around his apartment to keep busy. The air mattress wasn't doing my back any favors, but I didn't care. I was sleeping better than I had in months, knowing she was about to walk into a nightmare. Jared and Lucas were my lifeline, feeding me updates whenever they had something new. The lawsuit was filed, her bank accounts were frozen, and the IRS had jumped on Lucas's report like hounds on a scent. Everything was in motion, and I didn't have to lift a finger now, just sit back and let it hit her. She'd left me with nothing, or so she thought, but I'd turned it around. When she landed, she'd find out what nothing really felt like. I was in Ryan's kitchen that morning, frying eggs for us both, when Jared called. She's back, he said, his voice buzzing with excitement. Plane touched down an hour ago. My buddy at the courthouse says her lawyer's already scrambling. Looks like she tried to pull cash and got a nasty surprise. I flipped an egg, grinning to myself. Accounts are still frozen? I asked. Tight as a drum, he said. She's got no access to a dime. Credit cards are toast too. Judge slapped a hold on everything until the fraud case gets heard. I set the spatula down, leaning against the counter. "Perfect," I said. "Keep me posted." Ryan walked in, sniffing the air. "Eggs and revenge for breakfast?" he joked, grabbing a plate. I laughed. "Best meal I've had in a while." I didn't hear anything else for a few hours, but I could picture it, Monica stepping off that plane, all tanned and smug, rolling her designer luggage through the airport. She'd probably call for a car, swipe her card, and then bam, declined. I wondered how long it'd take her to figure out she was broke. Not long, I guessed. She wasn't the type to stay calm when things went wrong. Sure enough, Lucas texted me later that afternoon. IRS just sent her an audit notice. She's freaking out, tried to book a hotel and couldn't pay. I sat on Ryan's couch, reading that message over and over, letting it sink in. Her perfect little world was crumbling, and I hadn't even said a word to her. That was the best part. I'd stayed silent, invisible, while she dug her own grave. The real kicker came that evening. Ryan and I were watching some dumb action movie, half paying attention, when my phone buzzed again. It was Jared. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. "She showed up at her penthouse, that swanky place she rented with the house money, and the locks are changed. Her stuff's piled up in the hallway like trash." I sat up straight, the movie forgotten. "What? How'd that happen?" I asked. Jared laughed. "Landlord got wind of the fraud case and the frozen accounts. She missed last month's rent. Guess she thought she'd pay it when she got back. They evicted her, Jace. She's got nowhere to go." I couldn't help it. I laughed too, loud and hard, until Ryan muted the TV and stared at me. "What's so funny?" he asked. "Monica's homeless," I said, still chuckling. "Locks changed, stuff on the curb. She's done." I hung up with Jared and leaned back, picturing her standing there in front of that penthouse door, key not working, her precious luggage stacked around her. She'd probably call Richard, her slick divorce lawyer, in a panic. But Jared had mentioned something else. Richard wasn't answering her calls anymore. Word was spreading fast, and nobody wanted to touch her now that she was broke and tangled in legal trouble. I could see her flipping through her phone, all those fancy friends she'd bragged about, only to get voicemail after voicemail. Her smugness was gone now, replaced by that wide-eyed panic she used to hide so well. The audit notice would have hit her like a truck too. Tax evasion wasn't a slap on the wrist. The IRS didn't mess around, and Lucas had given them everything they needed to nail her. Ryan handed me another beer, shaking his head. "You're a genius, man," he said. "She thought she'd leave you in the dust, and now she's the one with nothing." I took the bottle, clinking it against his. "She did it to herself," I said. "I just made sure she felt it. And she was feeling it, all right. No money, no penthouse, no lawyer, no way out. I'd spent those 2 weeks building a cage around her, piece by piece, and now she was locked in. I didn't need to see her face to know how bad it was. I could feel it, like a weight lifting off my chest. She'd walked out of our house without a care, kissing my cheek like it was nothing. Now she was the one scrambling, and I was the one sitting pretty. I slept like a baby that night, the air mattress creaking under me. Monica was back, but she wasn't home. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. The trap was sprung, and she was caught. I didn't know what she'd do next, probably try to call me, beg for help, act like none of this was her fault. But I wasn't picking up. She'd made her bed, and I wasn't about to let her crash on Ryan's couch. She'd find out soon enough that I wasn't the pushover she thought I was. This was her hell now, and I'd build it brick by brick. Tomorrow, I'd see what she tried next, but for now, I closed my eyes and let the quiet take over. She was down, and I was just getting started. The morning after Monica landed, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The air mattress at Ryan's place was still a pain, but I didn't mind. I was riding high on the news from Jared and Lucas. She was back, broke, and evicted, and I hadn't even had to lift a finger to see her world fall apart. I made coffee in Ryan's beat-up kitchen, the smell filling the small space, and checked my phone. Sure enough, there were 3 missed calls from her, all from late last night, and a voicemail I didn't bother listening to yet. I could guess what it said, some mix of panic and fake tears, probably begging me to fix the mess she'd made. I set the phone down, sipping my coffee, and let her wait. She'd ignored me when I called her in Paris, brushing me off like I was nothing. Now it was my turn to play silent. Ryan shuffled in, rubbing his eyes, and grabbed a mug. "She call yet?" he asked, nodding at my phone. "Yep," I said, leaning against the counter. 3 times. Didn't pick up. He grinned, pouring himself some coffee. "Cold, man. I like it." I shrugged. "She dug the hole. I'm just watching her climb out or not." He laughed. And we sat there for a bit, talking about nothing important, just killing time. I wasn't in a rush. Monica was desperate now, and every minute I didn't answer was another minute she'd sweat. I'd spent weeks setting this up, freezing her accounts, triggering the IRS, letting her trip over her own greed. Now I could sit back and enjoy it. Around noon, my phone buzzed again, her number. I let it ring, watching the screen light up, then go dark. For calls now. No texts, though, which surprised me. She wasn't the type to beg over a message. She'd want to hear my voice, think she could charm me like she used to. But that wasn't happening. I'd seen her true colors when she walked out with that wine glass and that smirk, and I wasn't falling for it again. Lucas called a little later, his voice gruff but smug. "She's spiraling," he said. "Tried to sell some jewelry this morning. Pawn shop wouldn't take it without proof it's hers. Guess she didn't plan on needing receipts." I chuckled, picturing her standing there, clutching her fancy necklace, getting turned away. "She's got nothing left?" I asked. "Nada," he said. "House money's gone, spent it all on trips and her new guy. No cash, no credit, no friends stepping up. She's toast." That new guy part stuck with me. Lucas had mentioned it before. Some rich idiot she'd been cozying up to, probably thinking he'd be her next meal ticket. But if he wasn't bailing her out now, he'd either ditched her or never cared in the first place. She'd burned through the house money fast. Private jets, 5-star hotels, gifts to impress him. And now she was empty-handed. I leaned back on Ryan's couch, letting that sink in. She'd sold my home, our life, for a fling and a few weeks of luxury, and it had blown up in her face. I almost felt bad for her, almost. But then I remembered that sold sign, her kissing my cheek like it was a favor, and any pity dried up quick. By evening, she called 6 times. I still didn't answer. Ryan was out grabbing pizza, and I was alone in the apartment, flipping through channels, when the 7th call came. I stared at the phone, tempted for a second to pick up, just to hear her squirm. But I didn't. Silence was my weapon now. She'd figure out soon enough that I wasn't her lifeline. Jared texted me around 8. "She's been calling Richard nonstop. He's dodging her. Won't touch a broke client." I grinned. Her lawyer was out. Her lover was gone. Her money was locked up. She was alone, and it was hitting her hard. I wondered where she was sleeping, some cheap motel. Maybe, if she'd scraped together a few bucks. Not my problem. Then, late that night, I heard it, a knock on Ryan's door. I froze, the TV humming in the background. It was past 11, too late for anyone normal. I got up slow, my gut telling me who it was before I even checked. I peeked through the peephole, and there she was, Monica, standing in the hall, looking like hell. Her hair was a mess, her fancy coat wrinkled and dirty, her eyes red like she'd been crying. She knocked again, softer this time, and I just watched her through the tiny lens. She'd found me. Of course she had. Ryan's place wasn't a secret, and she was desperate enough to try anything. I didn't open the door, didn't move. She knocked a 3rd time, then spoke, her voice shaky through the wood. "Jace, I know you're in there. Please, just talk to me." I stood there, my hand hovering over the knob, but I didn't turn it. She'd sold me out, left me with nothing, and now she was here because she'd run out of options. I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven, like she was up. "I messed up," she said quieter now. "I just need some help, okay? I don't have anywhere else to go." My jaw tightened. She didn't have anywhere to go because she'd torched every bridge, mine included. I thought about that wine glass, her strolling out like I didn't matter, and I stepped back from the door. She knocked again, weaker, then stopped. I waited, listening, until I heard her shuffle away, her footsteps fading down the hall. I sank back onto the couch, my heart pounding, but my mind clear. She was down, lower than I'd ever seen her, and I'd done that. Not with yelling or fighting, but with patience, with planning. She'd tried to reach me all day, and now she'd shown up, begging, and I'd given her nothing. Ryan got back with the pizza a few minutes later, raising an eyebrow at my face. "What did I miss?" he asked. "Monica stopped by," I said, grabbing a slice. "Didn't let her in." He whistled. "Savage. She's done, huh?" I nodded, chewing slow. "Yeah, she's got nothing left." And she didn't. Not a dime, not a friend, not a chance. I'd watched her spiral, and I wasn't lifting a finger to stop it. She'd made her choice. Now she'd live with it. It was midnight when that knock came, sharp and sudden, pulling me out of a half-sleep on Ryan's couch. The TV was still flickering, some late-night infomercial droning on about knives. but I wasn't really watching. My head was still buzzing from the day. Monica's calls, her showing up at the pawn shop, Lucas's update about her being flat broke. I'd figured she might try something desperate, but I didn't expect her to drag herself to Ryan's door so soon. I sat up slow, rubbing my eyes, and shuffled over to the peephole. There she was, just like I'd thought. Hair tangled, coat crumpled, eyes puffy and red. She looked like a stranger, not the polished Monica who'd kissed my cheek and walked out with her suitcases. I stood there, one hand on the doorframe, watching her fidget in the hall. She knocked again, softer this time, like she wasn't sure I'd answer. I didn't move. "Jace," she called, her voice cracking through the door. It was low, shaky, nothing like the cool confidence she'd thrown at me over the phone in Paris. "I know you're in there. Please just talk to me." I didn't say a word, didn't even breathe loud. My chest tightened, but it wasn't pity. It was something colder, harder. She'd spent all day trying to reach me, 6 calls ignored, and now she was here, standing on my last inch of ground. I leaned closer to the peephole, watching her shift her weight, her hands twisting together. She looked small out there, beaten, but I wasn't buying it. Not yet. She'd played me too many times, and I wasn't opening that door just because she'd run out of places to run. She knocked once more, barely a tap, and her voice dropped even lower. "Jace, please. I just need some time. I don't have anywhere else to go." I tilted my head, my lips pressing into a thin line. Time. She needed time? I'd given her years. Years of late nights, overtime, sweat, to build a life she'd sold out from under me. And now she was here, acting like I owed her something. I stepped back a little, crossing my arms, and kept watching. Her lip trembled, and she hugged herself, the coat slipping off one shoulder. "You wouldn't actually leave me out here, would you?" she said, almost a whisper, like she couldn't believe it herself. I felt a flicker of something. Anger, maybe, or just tired disgust. And I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "You don't need a luxury home at your age," I said, throwing her own words back at her through the door. She froze, her head snapping up like I'd slapped her. I could see it in her eyes, even through the blurry peephole that hit hard. She opened her mouth, then closed it, like she didn't know what to say. Good. Let her feel that sting. Let her remember how she'd smirked at me, sipping wine while she tore my life apart. I straightened up, my hand brushing the doorknob, but not turning it. "You wouldn't leave me out here," she said again, louder, like she was trying to convince herself. I smiled, cold and sharp, and stepped forward just enough to let her hear me clear. "Watch me," I said. Then I swung the door open, not to let her in, but to look her dead in the eye for one long second. Her face crumpled, tears streaking down her cheeks, but I didn't flinch. I slammed the door shut, the bang echoing in the quiet apartment, and locked it tight. I stood there, listening, my pulse hammering in my ears. She didn't knock again. I heard a soft sob, then the shuffle of her feet as she backed away, dragging something, probably that damn suitcase, down the hall. The sound faded, and then it was just me and the hum of the TV again. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding and sank back onto the couch, my hands shaking a little. That was it, the final showdown, right there in Ryan's hallway. She'd come crawling back, and I'd shut her out, just like she'd shut me out of our home, our life. It felt good, clean, like cutting a rope that had been strangling me for too long. I grabbed my phone, checking the time, 12:15. Ryan would be back soon from his late shift at the bar, probably with some story about drunk customers to lighten the mood. I didn't call Jared or Lucas yet, didn't need to. They'd hear about this tomorrow, and we'd laugh about how far she'd fallen. I could still see her face in my head, all that desperation, and it didn't soften me one bit. She'd sold the house, spent the money, left me with nothing but a bag of clothes and a truck full of junk. Now she was the one with nothing, no penthouse, no cash, no one to turn to. I'd watched her spiral all day, and this was the capper. She'd thought I'd cave, thought I'd be the same old Jace who'd let her walk all over me. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I flipped off the TV, the silence settling in, and lay back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. She was gone, for now at least. Maybe she'd try again tomorrow, maybe not. Didn't matter. I'd made my point, drawn my line. She'd taken everything she could, and I'd taken it back, not with begging or yelling, but with cold, hard moves. The lawsuit, the IRS, the silence. It had all led to this, her standing at my door with nowhere else to go, and me saying no. I closed my eyes, a small grin tugging at my lips. She'd lost, and I'd won, right here in this dingy apartment. Tomorrow, I'd figure out the next step, but for tonight, I was done. She was out there, scrambling, and I was in here free. That was enough. The next morning hit me like a fresh start, the kind I hadn't felt in months. I woke up on Ryan's couch, the lumpy cushions digging into my back, but I didn't care. Sunlight was sneaking through the blinds, and the apartment was quiet except for the faint drip of the coffee maker I'd set up earlier. Monica was gone, out of my space, out of my head, at least for now. That showdown at the door last night had sealed it. She'd come begging, and I'd sent her packing, her own words thrown back in her face. It felt right, final, like I'd taken the last swing in a fight she'd started. I got up, stretched, and poured myself a mug of coffee, letting the steam warm my hands. Today wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, about finishing what I'd started and coming out on top. Ryan stumbled in from his room, hair a mess, yawning like he'd barely slept. "You look smug as hell," he said, grabbing a mug. "She gone for good?" I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee. "For now," I said. "Showed up last night, crying, asking for help. Told her to get lost." He raised an eyebrow, then laughed. "Damn, Jace. You're ice cold. What did she do?" I shrugged. Stood there, looking pathetic. Left when she realized I wasn't budging. He shook his head, grinning. "She's finished, man. You won." I nodded, slow and steady. Yeah, she was finished, and I was just getting started. My phone buzzed on the counter. Lucas. I picked it up, already knowing he'd have something good. "Morning," he said, his voice rough but upbeat. "Got an update on your ex-wife. She's a mess." I set my mug down, leaning in. "Tell me," I said. He chuckled. "Tried to skip town last night. Booked a flight to Mexico with some credit card she must have borrowed. Didn't work. IRS flagged her passport at the airport. She's stuck here, and they're closing in." My grin widened. "Mexico?" She was running scared now, but she couldn't outrun this. "What else?" I asked. "Fraud investigations heating up," he said. "They're pulling her bank records, the offshore stuff, everything. She's looking at real trouble. Fines, maybe jail if they push it." I let that sink in. Jail. Monica in some cell, no wine, no yachts. "Keep me posted," I said, and hung up, feeling lighter than ever. Jared called next, right on cue. "Good news, buddy," he said, papers rustling in the background. "Her divorce lawyer bailed, dropped her this morning. Couldn't pay him, and he's not dumb enough to stick around for free. Plus, we want a chunk of the fraud settlement. House money's coming back to you. Enough for a new place, clean start." I sat down hard, the words hitting me like a wave. "Money back? A new house? How much?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. "Couple $100,000, he said. "She's got nothing left to fight with. Accounts are drained. IRS is taking the rest. You're golden." I laughed, loud and real, and Ryan looked over, confused. "Settlement," I told him, still chuckling. "I'm getting a house out of this." He whistled. "Hell yeah, man. She's screwed, and you're set." I spent the rest of the morning letting it settle in. Monica was done, accounts empty, lawyer gone, passport flagged. The IRS was on her like flies on trash, and Lucas said they'd seize whatever she had left. She'd tried to flee, but she was trapped, stuck in a web I'd helped weave. And me? I was walking away with cash, a fresh slate, and no regrets. I grabbed my keys and told Ryan I'd be back, needed to drive, to think. I hit the road, windows down, the cool air rushing in. The sold sign flashed in my mind, but it didn't sting anymore. She'd taken that house, sure, but I'd taken everything else, her money, her freedom, her smug little life. I pulled into a lot near the river, just a quiet spot I used to go to clear my head. Sat there in my truck, watching the water move slow and steady. Monica had walked out thinking she'd won, kissing my cheek like I was some chump she'd played. She'd spent it all, trips, clothes, that guy she thought would save her, and now she had nothing. I'd stayed quiet, let Jared and Lucas do the heavy lifting, and it had paid off. The lawsuit hit her accounts, the IRS crushed her plans, and I'd shut the door in her face. She was a ghost now, scrambling for scraps, while I was whole again. Better than whole, I was free. I thought about that settlement money, picturing a new place. Nothing fancy, just mine, Four walls, a yard, a spot to breathe. Maybe I'd get a dog, something big and loud to keep me company. Ryan probably crashed there half the time, and Jared and Lucas would come over for beers, laughing about how we'd pulled this off. Monica wouldn't be part of it. No trace of her in my new life. She tried to erase me, but I'd flipped it. She was the one erased now, broke, alone, running from shadows she'd made. Driving back to Ryan's, I felt the last of her weight lift off me. She'd started this, selling my home, thinking I'd break. But I didn't. I fought, quiet and smart, and I won. Lucas texted again. She'd been spotted at some dive motel, haggling over a room. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. She was a memory, fading fast, and I was moving forward. The road stretched out ahead, and for the first time in a long time, it looked good. I turned up the radio, let the music fill the cab, and grinned. She'd taken everything she could, but in the end, I took it all back, and then some.